Hey guys, I hope you're having a sweet week. I've got my white whiskey, my UJSSM, my Moonshine, whatever you want to call it, sitting here ready to go, and now I want to get it oaking. But all I have at this point in time is a big old hunk of oak. So how do I get this ready? How do I prepare it so I can put it in my spirits? Welcome to Distiller everyone, I'm Jesse and this is the channel all about chasing the craft of home distillation and making it a legitimate hobby. So if that's what you're into, if you want to play with stills or you're already playing with stills, this might just be the channel for you. If it is, have a look around, and if you dig it, hit the subscribe button so you don't miss anything. Alright guys, so like I said, I've got this big ass chunk of American white oak, which in New Zealand, to be honest, is sometimes a little bit tricky to find. So thank you. One of the crew hooked me up with this. Thanks again for that, dude. If you guys want to see that video where I opened this up, I'll stick a link up top. Once again, thanks man, you're awesome. And today, I'm going to try and do it justice. Alright guys, so first up, just in case you're not quite sure what I'm talking about, why would you go putting wood into spirits? Well, a lot of the spirits that you know and love are traditionally aged on oak, and especially white oak, French oak, sometimes Hungarian oak as well. So what does that do to your spirits? Well, first up, the most obvious thing is it's going to change the color. This one is white whiskey, or white UJSSM, white moonshine. This one's been sitting on oak for about a month now. So it is going to change the color, but it's also going to change the flavor. And the way that it changes these things is going to depend on how you treat the oak before you put it into your spirits. So that is what we're doing today, guys. Let's get into it, eh? The first thing I want to do is divide this thing up into smaller bits. It's huge. This is heaps of oak for me right now. But first, I think we need to back up a little bit and lay a little bit of groundwork. I'm talking, of course, about what sort of wood you can use, where you should get it from, and a few things to be cautious of. First up, the type of wood you should use. If you're new to this, I would suggest probably for now sticking to the main ones that people age spirits with, and that is going to be white oak, American white oak, or French oak. I am in no way saying that those are the only things to age your spirits with. There's a whole lot of other stuff you can experiment with and a whole lot of other stuff that does an amazing job. I am totally sure of that. But the reason I say that is tricky sometimes to decide what else you want to use. And there are a lot of traps out there. There are a lot of woods that are either straight up bad for you, poisonous, some that are dubious and the community hasn't really decided on entirely yet, some that aren't really dangerous but will make your spirits taste like absolute crap and waste your time. So, to get started, I think it's probably a good idea to use a wood that everyone sort of agrees on. Things to be aware of with the wood, assuming that you're getting American white oak. First up, you want to know where it came from and you want to know what's happened with it. You do not want it to be treated in any way, painted. Basically, you want no chemicals on here. You want just straight up oak. It'll depend where you live and what resources you have around you, how hard it is to find oak in that condition. But make sure you do, guys. The next thing to mention is that you do want it to be very well seasoned. Fresh cut right off the tree is no good for us. You want it to be well seasoned. And a lot of the people that I really respect even say if they are getting, rounds off a tree, they'll literally put it outside in the weather and let it sit for like a year, 2 years, and that's the best way to do it. There are some ways that I've heard people talking about rush seasoning or aging their wood, I guess you'd call it. And I do want to experiment with that soon, but that's not for this video. Alright guys, so once we have a hunk of oak, we are ready to then cut it up into manageable pieces. This is the rough size that I'm aiming for today, and I guess that is about, I don't know, I guess in metric that's what, 12 by 12 by 100, something like that. In inches, I'm not very good in inches, but I'm guessing a half inch by 2 inches, something like that. Now I know that a lot of you may be saying that this, depending on what you're doing and how long you're going to age it for, might actually be a little bit big, but here's my thinking on this. You can always cut it smaller, kind of hard to put it back together. So I would rather cut it to this size. I know that I'm not generally going to want anything bigger than this, but I may want something smaller than it, and that's easy to bang it with a chisel or something right before you stick it in. rather than cutting it too small and not knowing what to do with it. The next thing is, how are we going to cut it? You may notice from this, let me see if I can show you, that this is quite rough. And the reason it looks like that is it's actually been split along the length of the grain. Let me focus again. And it hasn't been sawn. So why would we want to do that? The idea is that splitting the wood down the length of the grain, that exposes long grain as opposed to the short grain that you're going to get when you cut it. And there's a pretty long-standing idea, especially among home distillers, that the short grain is going to give you more bitterness or sort of tannin rather than the flavors you're really looking for in your spirit, and that is why we split it rather than cutting it. Now, in saying that, my block is obviously somewhat larger, so I am going to rip this down the middle with the drop saw, and then after that I'm going to get my axe on and split it up. So now I want to split that lengthwise, not cut it. And to do that, I'm going to use my axe. But there's something kind of wrong with this picture. Wait on. Haha, that's better. Cool, so now I've got my oak all split up and it's roughly the size that I was looking for. It does sort of vary a little bit, but that's cool. It makes no difference to me. So what are we gonna do with this next? At this point, you really have two options. One is to char it and one is to toast it, or I guess you could do both. Toasting the oak is basically just cooking it for a certain amount of time at a certain temperature, and charring it is charring it, burning it. The way you want to treat your oak at this point in time probably heavily depends on what you're trying to make or what you're trying to imitate, when you put it into your spirit, the type of spirit you're putting it into, and all that sort of thing. But you do have some help on this area. There is this chart that's floating around on all the forums. I do not know who to credit this chart to first, because everywhere I've seen it is a repost from another place, and it seems to go around in circles. I can't figure it out. So if you guys know exactly where this came from first, let me know. I'd be really interested. But the idea is that it gives you a sense of the sort of flavors that you're going to accentuate or bring out of the wood and impart into the spirits by cooking it at a different temperature. For me, the areas that I'm interested in are the oak, the vanilla, and the almond. My thinking at this stage is that it's pretty easy to char the oak. Just grab a blowtorch or throw it on the barbecue or whatever. And you can char it at different levels as well, but that's a pretty quick process. So what I want to do right now is toast my oak at 3 different levels, but also save some and keep it raw, so I've got the option to do something with it later as well. Once again, going back to that chart as reference, I am going to do the first toast at 115 degrees Celsius, which is the same as 240 degrees Fahrenheit. I am going to do that for 2 hours. With that toast, I'm aiming for sort of peak oakiness and a little bit of sweetness coming out. Next, I am going to go on to sort of hunting for the vanilla. To get those flavors, I'm aiming for 180 degrees Celsius. I am going to do that for 2 hours as well, and that is the equivalent of 356 degrees Fahrenheit. Next, I want to start looking at the toasty and the almond sort of flavors, and for that I'm going to toast another batch at 220 degrees Celsius, which is 428 degrees Fahrenheit, once again for 2 hours. Last night I decided that it would be a good idea to jump on the back end of YouTube, have a look at the stats, and try and work out exactly how long I have been doing this for. Turns out it's going to be a year this weekend. What? What? A year of Still It. That's crazy. Isn't that crazy? So I figured I should probably do something to kind of at least celebrate a little bit. So I'm going to do a anniversary 1 year live stream tomorrow morning, New Zealand time. So literally 27 hours, something like that. After this video comes out, I'm going to be live tomorrow as well. All right, team, back to it. So what I want to do now is actually toast this wood, and I got to do it 3 times. So this is going to take 6 hours. So I'm not going to put you guys through that, but I do want to talk about sort of how I'm going to do it and what I'm going to use to do it. There are, of course, different ways to do it. Some are faster, some are slower, some are really safe, and some are kind of, well, honestly, they're actually really dangerous. And I don't think enough people talk about this within the hobby, but I've heard some horror stories about people, you know, like ruining their lives over this. And I think it would be irresponsible of me to not bring that up right now. I'm actually going to do the really dangerous way tonight. Honestly, I don't know how it's going to go. So if I don't make the live stream, you know what happened. If you're not sure what I'm talking about, guys, it is the idea of taking something from the shed, a hobby that lives out in the shed, and taking that hobby inside and trying to put it in the oven. If you're single, you probably have no idea what I'm talking about. If, on the other hand, you're in any sort of relationship, you probably know what I'm talking about, and you probably know that there's a better than fair chance that you're going to get a new asshole ripped for yourself. Anyway, let's grab the oak and see if we can sneak inside and get this done.
Singapore is now one of the world's richest countries. And so it can happen, it is happening. The most remote, poorest parts of the world are going to be the hardest to bring.
So actually it turns out that pretty much I end up doing most of the cooking around here, so it's not that scary for me to bring wood into the house and put it in the oven. You don't care, do you?
No.
You couldn't care less.
I don't care.
She literally doesn't care. She's just really grumpy that I'm taking up time.
I literally don't really ever cook.
Or care.
I clean.
She's a great cleaner. Anyway, hi twins. Anyway, guys, so the idea is that you want to lay the wood out on tin foil, wrap it up, and try to keep it sort of not too thick in any one place. Keep it sort of spaced out, I guess. Wrap it up well, and you're going to end up with a little brick like this, which you can stab a few holes in and pop into the oven. So I'm going to do my lowest temperature cook first. It's going in there for 2 hours into the middle of the oven, so it doesn't get cooked at the bottom or cooked at the top too much. And we'll see it in 2 hours time. So that took a while. That was like 6 hours worth of oven time. So obviously it's the next day now, and I do have the 120, 180 and 220 oak in front of me to have a look at. I can tell you that there's a really obvious difference in color between the 120 and the others, and just a subtle difference between the 180 and the 120 degree. What I did notice while these things were in the oven was the quite drastically different smells coming out of the oven. The 120 pretty much just smelled like wood whenever I opened the door up. 180 was smelling woody, but also kind of sweet and a little bit more, not quite, I guess vanilla. And the 220 was really interesting. It smelled kind of like cookies that were almost burnt, but not quite, you know, or if you bake cookies, it a little bit kind of falls off to the side and gets a little bit too dried out. And it's almost a nice flavor, but at the same time, it's heading towards a little bit acrid or bitter or something like that. That is exactly what that reminded me of. So like semi-burnt brown sugar, perhaps, something like that. It was really interesting smelling that coming out of the oven. So I'm really happy with this. I've got a whole lot of oak here. I've got more than what I know to do with right now. I think what I should do is maybe give a couple of pieces away. What do you reckon, guys? So if you're interested and you want some for yourself, stick a comment in the video down below. Let me know what you would like to age and what temperature or wood that you'd be interested in trying. I'll just do a couple of little bits for people. let's say I'll give some away to 2 different people anywhere in the world. I'll post it to you if your country is cool with that in terms of customs and all that jazz. So yeah, stick a comment down below. Let me know what you want to age and how you want to age it, and I'll pick 2 people to send some stuff to. Obviously, I need to get the stuff into some spirits, and I will do that very shortly in a video to come. What I think I would like to do is do a forced aging, a speed aging, whatever you want to call it, with the UJ SSM. Let me know what you think, guys. So if you liked the video, guys, give it a thumbs up. If you really liked it and you're not subscribed yet, have a think about doing so down below. Don't forget to catch the live stream the day after this video is released, and I'll catch you guys next time. See ya.